Hey guys, welcome back to Your Mindset, Your Power. There was a time when humans believed flying was impossible. Not difficult, not risky, impossible. No one had ever been beyond the clouds. So the belief made sense. And today, planes cross the world like it's nothing. Which makes me want to ask you something important. What limits in your life feel normal? Not because they're true, but because you have never questioned them. Because the most dangerous limits are not the ones that scare you. They're the ones that feel reasonable, the ones that sound logical, responsible, even mature. The ones we don't argue with because they've been sitting quietly in our minds for years. So today we're talking about why limits are lies and how your power doesn't come from pushing harder, but from questioning what you've been calling truth. So before we talk about where limits come from, we need to understand what makes them so powerful in the first place. Fear is loud. It makes noise. It demands your attention. Limits are quieter. They don't interrupt your thoughts. They blend into them. They sound like people like me don't do that. At my age, in my situation, it's too late to change. It's impossible. And because they sound reasonable, we don't challenge them. We adjust to them. And that's exactly why they are dangerous, my friend. Not because they're dramatic, but because they feel logical. They're sneaky. Fear can stop you in a moment. But limits can shape your entire life. You can feel fear and still move forward. But when a limit feels like truth, you don't even consider trying. You don't dream bigger. You don't question. You don't test what's possible. You quietly reshape your life to fit inside the boundary. Maybe that looked like the job you didn't apply for, not because you were not capable, but because you assumed you were never meant to be chosen. The place you stayed, the job, the relationship, the role, telling yourself, this is just how it is. Or the question you stopped asking because somewhere along the way, you decided the answer will ever be no. And this is where mindset becomes power, my friend. Because your mindset is just not how you think. It's what you accept as fact. It's what you stop questioning. And the moment you stop questioning something, you hand your power over to it. So the real question is not, what am I afraid of? No, it's this. What have I been calling realistic that might actually be a lie? So let's talk about where limits come from. Because most limits don't come from failure. They don't come from weakness. And they don't come from you being not enough. No, they come from learning. We learn limits by watching, by listening, by adapting. Let me give you an example. You grow up watching the same people stay in the same jobs for decades, quietly unhappy, and without anyone ever saying it out loud. So you learn, this is just how life is. Or maybe you hear things like, be realistic. Don't get your hopes up. People like us don't do that. I'm too old. And over time, those messages stop sounding like opinion. They start feeling like facts. And without realizing it, we begin shrinking our expectations to fit inside rules we never agreed to. So if you have ever thought, this is just who I am, or this is just how life works, that doesn't mean you lack ambition. It means you adapt it. And at some point, those limits may have even protected you. Maybe they even help you fit in, stay safe, avoid disappointment. And that matters, yeah. But protection is not the same as truth, my friend. And I want to share a personal story here because this is something I lived years ago when I was working at a local Spanish TV station in Los Angeles. The Vice President of the United States at that time, Al Gore, was coming to the city. I had come from a network in Miami, and I remember thinking, what if we tried to get a one-on-one interview with him? And when I brought the idea to my boss, he laughed and said, "That's impossible. We are a local Spanish TV station. He would never give us an interview." And let me tell you, that word never triggered something in me. It literally lit a fire in me. I remember thinking, who decided that? And why are we treating it like a fact? And why assuming something when wasn't ever tried? So I decided to try. Not because I knew it would work, but because I didn't believe impossible was the final answer. This was before social media, before texting, before video calls, before even Zoom. Everything was done by phone. So I called the White House press office. And then I called again and again. And I started building a relationship with the person managing the vice president's agenda. I explained why this interview mattered, not to me, but to the Latino community in Los Angeles. And eventually, guess what? He said yes. My boss could not believe it. The head of the network even called me and asked me, "How did you manage to get that interview? We have tried for years." And I remember saying, honestly, I didn't know if it would work. I just knew I wasn't going to stop until someone told me yes. That one decision, not accepting the limit as truth, opened doors to more interviews and opportunities our station had never been included in before. And listen, guys, I'm not sharing this story to say, look what I did. No, I'm sharing it because it showed me something I've never forgotten. Limits often come from authority, from people we respect, from systems that feel bigger than us. Not because they're trying to limit us, but because they're passing down beliefs they never questioned themselves. And my personal story reveals how questioning a single assumption can change what's possible. Because limits don't disappear with time, my friend. They disappear the moment you ask, what if this isn't true? And that's where your power comes back. Not by forcing confidence, not by eliminating fear, but by questioning the story you have been living inside of. And here's the thing about limits, my friend. They don't disappear because you think positively. They disappear when you question them, not aggressively, not with force, but with curiosity. Because the moment you question a limit, it stops being a rule and it becomes a possibility. And I'm not asking you to convince yourself of anything. I'm not asking you to jump into action today. This episode isn't about doing more. It's about seeing differently. I'm simply asking you to notice the beliefs you've been treating as facts. So here are 3 questions I want you to sit with and write it down. Question 1. Who told me this was the limit? Was it a parent who meant well but spoke from their own fears? Maybe a teacher who labeled your ability too early? Maybe a boss who decided what you were capable of? A culture that told you when it's too late or who success is for? Or a moment in time that no longer defines who you are? And most importantly, ask yourself, does this perspective still get to decide my future? Question number 2. Is this belief proven or just familiar? Have I tested it? Or have I simply lived inside it because it's what I know? Because familiarity can feel a lot like truth, right? Even when it isn't. Question 3. What would change if this limit turned out to be wrong? Not forever, not dramatically, just what might open up. You don't need all the answers. You don't need certainty. You don't need a plan. You just need to be willing to stop calling a belief reality before you have questioned it. No one knew exactly how humans will fly before they questioned the belief that it was impossible. They didn't start with certainty. They started with one question. What if we're wrong? And that question, more than confidence, more than motivation, is what starts changing everything. And as we close today, my friend, I want you to hear this clearly. Limits are not facts. They are beliefs that went unchallenged for a long time. Many of them were learned. Some were inherited. Some were absorbed so quietly you don't even remember when they became yours. They didn't come into your life to harm you. Most of them showed up to protect you, to help you adapt, to help you survive a certain season. But survival is not the same as expansion. And here's what I want you to take with you into this new year. You don't have to break every limit today. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to force confidence or pretend you're fearless. No, my friend. All you have to do is notice when a belief has been acting like truth. Just that. Because the moment you question a limit, something powerful happens. It loses its authority. It stops being a rule and it becomes an option. It's a lot like standing behind a door you have never tried to open. Not because it was locked, but because you were told it was. You don't need to kick the door down. You just need to reach to the handle and see what happens. Today, we talk about the difference between fear and limits. Fear is loud. Limits are quiet. Fear can stop you in a moment, but limits can shape your entire life when you never question them. We talked about where limits come from families, from culture, authority, from moments in time that no longer define who you are. And we talked about how your power doesn't come from eliminating fear, but from questioning the beliefs you have been calling reality. This is why this podcast is called Your Mindset, Your Power. Because your power is not in controlling life. It's in choosing what gets to control you. So this week, I invite you to notice, without judgment, where a limit shows up. Not to fight it, not to shame yourself for it, just to ask, is this true? Or is this familiar? Because awareness is the first shift. And every meaningful change starts there. And my friend, if this episode resonated with you, I invite you to share it with someone who might be living inside a limit they never shows. And if you're willing, share it with yourself, as a reminder that your story is still unfolding. Next week, we will continue this conversation and talk about what happens after a limit is questioned, how you move forward without pressure, without perfection, and without going back to the old story. Can't wait to have that conversation with you. And thank you so much for being here, my dear friend. Thank you for choosing curiosity over certainty. And remember, your mindset is not just how you think. It's where your power begins. Have an awesome week. Love you guys.